guys know that I'm a victim advocate. I like to highlight stories when, when somebody's harmed online, whenever they're like targeted or abused or whatever. Like I try to highlight those types of things. And here is an especially sad um, case of someone who was attacked by a vicious mob online. My truth. I was attacked by Gail Simone fans because I called her out on Eternals. By Lyndon Hall. Clearly, I was being sarcastic. This guy's a fucking idiot, and he's playing the victim because he like responded to Gail Simone over something on Twitter, and he's a writer for Geeks and Gamers. He's a shitbag. He responded in some shitty way, and then her fans started responding to him, and he immediately wrote this article just whining about how he'd gotten mobbed or whatever. A pack of rabid, angry Gail Simone fans attacked me on Twitter after I called her out. So yeah, Gail said, okay, I loved Eternals. I'm not familiar with the comic, but I love the film. Lovely characters, avoidance of usual formulas, and lush visuals. I understand not everyone agrees, but I loved it. This is how he responded. Of course you love race-swapped, gender-swapped representation robots. Okay, that's a pretty inflammatory fucking thing to say. He didn't need to show up and retweet her to say this. He knows what he's doing. He's not a victim. He's a fucking moron. He retweeted and he said some racially and some inflammatory, like, this is clearly the talk of an anti-SJW, anti-woke chud-servative. And he, like they always do, they use this type of thing to twist the narrative and portray themselves as the victim. Like, imagine writing for fucking Geeks and Gamers and playing the victim to anything. Like, really? She says she's not that familiar with the comic. However, she praised the film, which race and gender swapped a number. Okay, so the deception here is he's implying that in order to actually appreciate the film, you have to know the comics. That if you're not familiar with the Eternals comics, your opinion on the movie is invalid, basically. That's what he's implying here. Which would mean that almost nobody's opinion is valid about the Eternals film because not a lot of people are familiar with the comics. So that's some bullshit. Eternals adds even more diversity with the MCU's first deaf superhero, Makari. The way these characters were introduced wasn't comic accurate. Holy I can't believe there's still anybody that uses that. Honestly, I can't believe that there's anybody that is still using it's not comic accurate as a criticism of these things. Show me a single comic book movie that has been 100% comic accurate. There's not one. Even stuff like Watchmen, where the visuals are very, very accurate. The text and the character beats and some of the, just straight up added scenes and stuff like completely change the tone of the film and the message of the comic to the film. So that's just another, false goalpost that people use. It turns out these Eternals are okay. So there's some spoilers there that I'm not going to read because I haven't seen the movie. But still, you see what I'm saying, right? Like he's basing this all on the fact that because she's not familiar with the comics, she's not allowed to say she likes the movie, and he's playing gatekeeper over the Eternals. And, and I'm willing to bet that if you look back in this guy's history of articles or tweets or whatever, he's probably never talked positively about the Eternals comics ever. So this is just bullshit. Here, she couldn't contain herself. Okay, look, why is this guy playing a victim and then like LOLing? Right? Like if you really feel victimized by Gail Simone and her followers, why don't you just block her? And block everybody that, replies that's, connected to her. This is such dishonest crap. It really, really is. So anyway, I started calling Lyndon. I noticed that he really doesn't like being called Lynn. He got really upset about that. So I figured, okay, well, I don't want to call him that. I'll just call him Lincel. Lincel. So yeah, if you ever see Lyndon Hall, just be sure to call him Lincel. Because I can't understand how any guy who is like secure with himself would get this worked up over this. He's a dishonest Geeks and Gamers fucking moron. But hey, Lyndon, if you ever want to come on stream and chat, buddy, let's do it. You know, just let me know. I'll send you an invite. We can have a friendly chat. Whatever. I'll even call you by your actual name. Yeah, Sin City was very close to the source material. Oh, and speaking of the, he actually mentioned Makari as, I guess, somehow being a bad thing, that, there's deaf representation. And yet, there's been a 250% increase in inquiries on learning sign language thanks to Lauren Ridloff's Makari in Eternals. It's actually a really cool costume. I like it. I have not seen her or seen the film, but the clips I've seen of her look really cool. I actually saw some of the video of her on the red carpet for the premiere, and she seems really awesome. But yeah, this is why representation is important. To show people, show people that anybody can be a powerful person, right? Like, it doesn't have to be someone that can hear. I saw some dude trying to say that just because she's supposed to be created by the gods, that she shouldn't be deaf. Like, why would you create a deaf person? And it's really, really silly. And ironically, that guy had a picture of Daredevil as his avatar, and like, you don't see the irony here? Hey, what's up, shitbag? You are a shitbag, dude. You're a fucking piece of shit. You're a dishonest, grifting piece of shit. You want to come on stream though? I'll send you we can talk about it. Come on, Lincel. Let's talk. You can explain why you think you're such a victim. Despite clearly talking shit on, representation and diversity for no reason, and creating a false, goalpost of like, it's not comic accurate. You can come on stream and explain to me which comic book movies have been comic accurate, you dishonest piece of shit. But I'm glad you're here, man. I'm glad that you showed up to, listen to some facts and hear your bullshit called out. Yeah, I know. Nope, not even. I'm living rent free in his head. He showed up to my stream. It's like I sent out the Lincel signal or something. Oh man, can't believe that dude showed up. He's not going to take the invite, I don't think. So it's funny how these people can always talk shit, but they can't, like. I've been inviting people for a few weeks now to come on stream. There's this one chud Imega on Twitter, who's always in my replies, always just talking the worst crap. Like, I mean, insults that if I was a 13-year-old and this dude said this stuff to me, I'd be like, oh, come on, is that the best you can do? But yeah, and there's a lot of there's about 3 or 4 of these dudes, and I'm pretty sure that Imega is at least 2 of them. There's this one guy, Seth Didymus, and they've all spent a lot of time defending the pedos that have been involved in Comicsgate, particularly that Slick Jimmy Love guy. I covered him a while back. Was arrested for downloading like thousands of CP images. And these guys defend him. They defend Comicsgate for having people like that in their ranks. It's pretty disgusting. But yeah, I've been inviting Comicsgaters and such. I sent out several pretty clear tweets. I put the hashtag and everything, and I was like, hey, if you can explain this disparity in your logic, come on stream and explain it to me. Nobody will do it. That Imega guy in one tweet simultaneously said that nobody in Comicsgate knows who I am, and I am a lolcow to them. So it's just like whatever they can say that they think is an insult. And it's like, people in Comicsgate know who I am. Anytime I mention Ethan Van Sciver, or I do videos specifically about Van Sciver, he talks about it. He shows it on his stream and stuff like that. They know who I am. But yeah, they just won't come on stream and, you know, defend their points because they know they don't have any. It's all just very superficial and deceptive framings of things. You know, like for how many years was the talking point was that sales are, you know, comics are dying. This, you know, sales are down. Nobody's buying these comics. And then year after year, the sales are up. And then they move the goalposts to, well, manga is beating comics, as if that's some kind of metric that matters to anybody. Like, for one thing, manga sales are down. They're down from where they were a decade ago. And I'm not celebrating that. I'd be fine if manga was up and if manga was beating comics. I wouldn't care, even though I don't really read or care about manga. It doesn't matter to me because whatever people want to read, man, whatever they're buying, they're buying. You know what I mean? Like, it's really fucking bizarre that so many people spend their time celebrating that the industry is not dying. But even if it was, especially if it was, why would people be celebrating that? You know, they claim to be fans, and yet they're like, ha, 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 the comic sales are down or whatever. And it's like, what is your goal here? And that's because the goal is to push back against anything that doesn't, you know, focus on straight white men, the traditional stories of comic books. Nicholas Saney says, can't tell you how many incel neckbeards are losing their minds over the new Marvel announcement. Yeah, I mean, you know, honestly, I get kind of frustrated when people say that these anti-SJWs are mad or they're upset or whatever, because I think that's a misread of the situation. They don't get mad or upset. They don't actually care. They don't, you know, it's not about they genuinely don't like what's happening or whatever. Uh-oh, did my camera freeze? What's up with that? Oh, they're not actually upset. It's just content for them. That's all it is. You know, the quartering isn't going to bed angry every night about, you know, Brie Larson or whatever Marvel's announced or anything like that. You know, what's his name from Nerdrotic isn't actually mad about the state of comics or Star Wars or anything like that. They don't actually spend any time thinking about it. I'm sure it's deceptive. That's just the vehicle that they use to push their hate. That's all it is. I am waiting on Lyndon Hall. I'm going to stop being mean. I'll stop being mean while Mr. Hall is on the stream. I'll be polite. You know, I mean, if he's cool enough to come on stream and you know, try to defend his weird points, then, you know, I'll be fair. Waiting on Mr. Lyndon Hall, the victim of a Gail Simone led hate mob, because Gail Simone's such a hateful person and she's known for oh man. Hey Lyndon, what's up, man?
How you doing? Sorry, I just had to grab a drink. It took a bit longer.
Right on. Yeah, I appreciate you showing up. I didn't expect you to get the Lynn signal, but
hey, sorry, I had the other stream going on in the background.
It's all good. Yeah, so what's up? I'm curious why you base your entire article or your entire point against Gail Simone on the fact that it wasn't comic accurate. Can you give me like what your standard for comic accuracy is, and like a film that you think represents comic accuracy? The standard that you have in mind?
The standard. No, what I was saying in the article is someone who writes comics, Gail Simone, praises a movie that isn't comic accurate. Like, isn't that funny? Because she writes comics and then she wants to say, I don't know anything about the comic, but I love the movie. That's fine with loving a movie. But if you're someone who writes comics, I just think you'd be, if I was writing comics and I saw that, I'd be like that. Or what it is like with Amazon. Like if I was Tolkien and I'm like, this is Lord of the Rings and look at what Amazon's doing, I'd be pissed. That's how I came to it. That's how I was looking at it. But first, that article was never going to be written anyway. That was that idea was floated. So you're wrong saying that. What I immediately wrote this article because I didn't. It took me a few hours. That was not happening.
Well, you know, I mean, I believe that. I don't believe. You know, I saw some people saying that you the entire intention of you, retweeting her in the first place was to create this victim narrative for yourself. And, I don't believe that that's necessarily the case, but I definitely think that you saw an opportunity in considering the publication that you write for, which is just, that's all Geeks and Gamers does, man, is play the victim. Anything that isn't, that has some character that's not a white male basically becomes this, big evil SJW agenda driven thing. Despite those not being definable terms that anybody can really point to. It's all just feelings based nonsense, don't you think?
Like, what are you talking about? Not being a straight white male? Like, what are some of the movies that you're like? What?
I mean, look at how. Star Wars: The Last Jedi, Captain Marvel, Black
You're gonna go back
Panther.
to Star Wars. I stopped talking about Star Wars because that got fucking ridiculous.
Hey man, I listed several things here. Please don't just fixate on one. I listed several things because all of them fit the same thing. They all fit the same structure of this thing comes out, and I don't think anything's wrong with Black Panther. I don't know if Geeks and Gamers specifically, but I'm pretty sure if I looked up, I can find where Jeremy talked some shit on it on his channel. But like,
Jeremy. What about Uche? But he's black.
What does that have to do with anything?
I'm saying he's black. You're talking about Geeks and Gamers. Geeks and Gamers isn't just Jeremy. Geeks and Gamers is a bunch of people who are doing some work about like all their different things, and they're different people. Like we've got LGBT members, we've got black people, we got all these different people. Like don't just narrow it down to Jeremy.
Well, I mean, he's clearly like the figurehead of the thing, right? Like he's the most visible person.
He's the creator, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, am I wrong to think that he's the one that started the thing, Geeks and Gamers? I mean, he sets the tone. The tone of Geeks and Gamers is to, whine about anything that comes out that isn't fixated on a white straight man. Basically, it happened with Shang-Chi. It happened with Black Panther. It happened with, Captain Marvel. Like there was, I don't know how many videos, and I'm sure Geeks and Gamers is one of them. Probably articles too, if I look, where it's just they're screeching about her being a feminist, that hates men and stuff, when it's like all she did was say that she thinks there needs to be more people of color that review movies, and that gets turned into like this. It's like you guys operate.
I don't want to hear what a 40-year-old white dude has to say about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for you.
Okay. So why okay, fine. You want to make a video about that and say, I think that's a shitty thing to say, but why did it turn into like a year almost of nonstop videos and
because he was using the algorithm? Like he knows the algorithm was geared towards making those kind of videos, so he did it.
So you do admit that Geeks and Gamers uses the algorithms and how it favors sensationalism and outrage. So you're making outrage content, right?
What is YouTube about? Getting views. A lot of people want to get views. Like if your algorithm is pushing one thing, you're gonna make more videos on that thing.
Well, because look, when I make content, I'm making it based on my ethics and the things that I actually believe. I try to. I'm as honest as I possibly can be. Okay, yeah. So if I wanted to make content about this that pisses me off and this that pisses me off, I would, and I could be far more successful. But I actually have ethics. You know what I'm saying? So like that's what I think, that it's completely dishonest to crank out these videos that basically say the same thing over and over and over and over again as if it's new, and to lie about the industries and say that the comic book industry is failing despite all this data that clearly shows that that's not true. It's deceptive. Why are you okay with that, man? Like, do you ever stop to think that, hey, maybe I could be a more positive contributor to fandom than this? Or you just sleep well at night and don't ever think about it, or what?
Are you talking about just Jeremy though? Like
I'm talking about you. Like me. You are working. Yeah, you're working
Mm-hmm.
for this website that is connected to a very prominent, hateful channel. It's hateful. You can say it's not, and you can say that, we got LGBT people and stuff. That doesn't preclude it from being hateful narratives. There are people of color on, that voted for Trump. That doesn't mean that Donald Trump is not a hateful fucking,
Well, I'm not even American, so I don't.
I noticed, but I mean, the point is, it's just an example, is what I'm saying. That it's like the equivalent of saying I can't be racist because I have a black friend, right? it's a non-starter. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. So what if you have a couple of people that are okay with what you guys are doing because it doesn't affect them, or they haven't stopped to think about the larger social ramifications of this type of content being cranked out the way that it is? That doesn't mean that it's not harmful. That doesn't mean that it's not creating an environment within fandoms and communities that tell certain people that they're not welcome, and that the representation that they want in certain characters and movies and comics and stuff, that it's not valid before the movie even comes out, before even a trailer often comes out, like with The Rocketeer recently. You know what I mean? Like, something is just announced as having a black character or whatever, and it instantly becomes this this rallying cry for, you know, where people are melting down as if it's like the end of you know, white men in America or something like that. It's absolutely absurd, and I don't understand. I mean, I guess the paychecks must be okay, because that's the only way I can understand not stopping to think about this and go, I'm kind of an idiot for doing this, aren't I?
You think everything's about money? That's like you and someone else I had a fucking interaction with, because someone asked me to write an article, so I was like, I'll write an article, and then Jesus Christ, like, okay, I have no idea what, like addressing me, like I don't know what you're talking about. Like, okay, you brought up Star Wars before. I fucking got out of the Star Wars game because it's dead now. Star Wars is absolutely dead. That no one cares, no one wants to talk about it, and the only people that talk about it now are Doomcock, who I stand on your side. I don't give a shit about Doomcock and his bullshit rumors that come out every fucking week about how Kathleen Kennedy's gone. And I'm like, well, we've been hearing that for fucking 2 years now. So yeah, with you on that. But who are the only people we hear talking about Star Wars? Or people on Twitter that are like super fangirling shit and like Raylos and all that. I'm like, but
okay, so
else,
let me ask you, why is it well, it's not everyone else, man. There are a lot of people who are still fans of Star Wars. It's just not true. It's like, I understand you are in an internet bubble that probably everybody around you doesn't give a shit, but you're not, you know, there are internet bubbles. You have to be aware of that, right? Like, there are communities where people with similar worldviews come together, and so that means that the people around you are, you know, Star Wars is dead, it sucks now, or whatever. And then there are other communities that you are not privy to, a lot of them, that are cool with Star Wars still. That are still
look at this
about
comment.
Star Wars.
Look at this comment. How is Star Wars dead? The Obi-Wan Kenobi series just got announced. Well, that destroys the lore and canon of Star Wars, doesn't it? Because Kenobi's going to have a rematch with Vader, which never happened.
How does that destroy the lore?
Because the first time that Obi-Wan saw Vader, since seeing him in Mustafar, was episode 4. And now they're going to have a rematch. If that actually happens, that never happened in the canon. They fought on Mustafar, and then they met in episode 4. They never saw each other before that.
At what point was it said that they'd never seen each other between that period? Tell me when exactly that was said that they had not encountered each other at all.
I have a tweet right here. I gotta find it.
Because I kind of know the original trilogy by heart. Like, I know that Obi-Wan says, you know, I haven't, you know, like he says some kind of vague thing that he hasn't seen him in or whatever. But like, it doesn't say specifically, we haven't seen each other since we fought on Mustafar.
Right here, I'll share the screen. So this is obviously from one of the novels that they always, like, because Star Wars has been doing this for how long now? They do extra novels and everything but it says, Vader looked up at the ship's hull. I sensed something, a presence I've not felt since, and then it says, since Mustafar. Then it hit him, Obi-Wan, he's still alive. So it says it right there. He hasn't seen him since Mustafar, episode 3, and then meets him in episode 4. So if they have a fight now in this Obi-Wan series, it's law breaking.
All right, well, so this brings me back to the whole premise of your article or your tweet about Gail Simone in the first place, which is, why do you feel like that canon is such a sacred thing that it cannot be ever altered or added to or retconned? Like, comics are retconned all the time.
So your channel is named Forced Adversity. So if I call the channel Geeks and Gamers, is that the same thing then? No, it's not the same thing. If you change the whole backstory or the look of something,
that doesn't make any sense, man. That doesn't make any sense. That's such an idiotic comparison as to be nonsensical. It really is. I'm sorry.
What about that meme? If your TV show or the movie you love is called Blue, and then it comes out that Disney makes a remake and it's called Red, it's it's changing the whole face of what it is and the whole idea of what that show is.
Well, because maybe this is the difference
So it's not
then,
the same.
because it seems like you're about, being instructed what to think about these stories, when I'm about interesting narratives and stories. If Disney wanted to remake my favorite show called Blue and call it Red, if the story's fucking good, then fine. It's like Watchmen. Watchmen by
good,
Zack
but it
Snyder.
destroys everything that's come before it. It's fine.
How do you feel about Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Zack Snyder's Justice League, bro. Okay. So I've been the MCU guy for a while, and then I knew I'd watched Man of Steel, thought it was decent. Then BVS came out, and then I was like, everyone was shitting on it because it was they said they chopped it up. It's not the best thing. You need to have an actual director's cut. Then that comes out. Watch that. I was like, oh yeah. And then but I was kind of out of it because when Justice League came out, and everyone's like, that is not the movie we were supposed to get. So I never bothered to watch it. And then Zack Snyder's Justice League comes out. It's announced. And I'm like, okay, I'm fully on the train. And I watched it. Fucking 4 hours. It's great. Yes, I love it. Sorry, it was a bit long-winded. Yes.
No, it's cool. I'm just curious why, because Zack Snyder's Justice League is not an accurate representation of pretty much any Justice League comic that has ever been written. I love it. I have a poster of it up. I love Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is actually kind of uncommon for people on the left, apparently. But I think it's great. I think there's definitely some flaws with it. There's certain things that Zack Snyder does in his films that I think are kind of odd choices. But overall, I think it's fucking great. However, I know that it's not anything like any Justice League comic that I've ever read, and I've read a lot of them. So why is it okay for Zack Snyder to do that? To do something that's completely unlike anything that has existed in the comics before.
But he's not a comic book writer talking about.
So where
he's
are
just
these
making movies?
Okay, but this is something you brought up twice now. Where is this standard decided and written? Who has decided that if someone writes a comic, then they have to obey certain standards, and if they haven't written a comic, they don't have to? Do you realize how arbitrary and kind of silly that is, man? Like, you're just making up standards and metrics for yourself, and that's fine. If you want to have standards and metrics for yourself, that is fine. But to try to apply them to everyone else and say that's some kind of objective, measurement or something it's pretty silly, man.
Well, I think what did you say before? I'm just being told what to think. Well, actually, if you watched anything from what G&G has done or any streams, you would have known that a lot of people clash with Jeremy over a lot of fucking things. So it's not an echo chamber like against what a lot of people believe, because we fight constantly about like movies, games, and what we think is the best. And Zack Snyder's movies are one of them. There's a big division in G&G. Like, a lot of people love these movies. Jeremy fucking hates them. So
we need. There's a big elephant in the room with that, though, isn't there? There's a big ass elephant in the room when it comes to Zack Snyder and Geeks and Gamers. Am I right?
Oh, we want to go there. Oh yeah.
Okay, so I can understand why there would be divided, because here's the thing. And maybe if I give you benefit of the doubt and say that you're not like a hateful person, that you just have very specific ideas, you as an individual, right? That you have very specific ideas for what you think should and shouldn't be done. The fact is, when it comes to the anti-SJW, anti-woke crowd, that's very often the starting point for their criticisms. Not the story or the characters or anything. It's like these positions are worked backwards too. So you start with SJW bad, woke bad, whatever those things mean, the very nebulous terms that get thrown around despite not having, I've heard everything from climate change to, a woman character being called woke. So it doesn't, and then the positions are argued backwards from there. Right. Mm-hmm. So I can understand why, after Zack Snyder rightfully called out Geeks and Gamers because of, Jeremy's made a lot of hateful content, man. Like, you may not think that.
I did a video on that. It's technically, yeah, I know behind the scenes things too that I can't divulge, but yeah, it's not quite true that what he said. It was the way he framed it, because he was talking about a PR statement that he obviously Warner Brothers wanted him to put out about that Asian hate thing, because that event just happened where a bunch of that massage parlor happened, and he wanted to get out in front of that.
Where was it said that this was a PR thing by Warner Brothers?
No, well, look at what happened right after with what's his name? Was it Was it it wasn't Patton? It was what is his name? The guy that went on after. I've got a video about it. They said the exact same thing. Same thing that Zack Snyder said about Asian hate and stopping Asian hate and Asian representation, all that. It was the same thing that was said right after that, before the premiere of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And also, okay. I mean, if you don't want to, I know you're going to hate this argument, but Uche called him perfectly on that stream, as Uche's stream, perfectly said straight away, well, as a father of Asian children, I mean, yeah, I can agree with you on that. So and he wasn't saying Geeks and Gamers is hateful. It was the way it was said that made it sound like he was saying that.
I'm pretty sure that was
my take.
That was the direct implication, I believe, man, was that you can look at the content that Geeks and Gamers has done. Maybe not you as an individual. I'm not familiar with your specific content other than this article, but I've watched plenty of Jeremy's stuff. I've looked at his, I've done a lot of research into this stuff over the last couple of years. It's literally what this channel is about. And you can't tell me that Jeremy hasn't made, hateful content. No, he's not out there with clan robes or anything like that. But I think it's pretty obvious that this day and age, the types of divisions in social, racial lines and stuff have become more nuanced with how people present their hateful points of view. And when everything that a certain channel makes is fixated on this anti-woke, anti-SJW stuff that is, like I said, very nebulous, and I've tried to get people to come on here and define it. You're welcome to if you want to, in some way that's coherent and is not just moving goalposts anytime they want to label something, right? But you can look at his content, and it makes sense that he was implying, yes, this is why I'm specifically singling out Geeks and Gamers. Even if it was a Warner Brothers mandate that he say that, it's not a coincidence that he specifically mentioned Geeks and Gamers, right? It's not just because, yeah, there's no other explanation for it.
Okay. Okay. Well, moving on from fucking all that shit that happened ages ago.
Well, I mean, why? I mean, why is it, if it happened ages ago? I mean, the Eternals comics happened ages ago, and yet you're fixated on how it's not the film's not comic accurate. Do you like any MCU films? Okay. Which ones of those are comic accurate?
Oh, fuck. No idea. You want me to say that? No idea. I don't care. Like that comic acts for those movies. I'm not the comic guy. I just know that as a comic writer, I would be pissed if because, as you said, I don't want to go into that. Because as a comics writer, I'd be pissed if someone made a movie and like Disney made a movie and was like, "Yeah, we're gonna make it," because it's. No, I said it because it's all for representation. Okay, cool. I'm happy that deaf people can feel represented now, and they can. And as you showed before, that a lot of people have been looking into sign language and all this. But why would a robot like an android I don't want to go into spoilers because it's a movie, but honestly, it's a fucking android that is deaf. Why would you need to create that? The only reason Disney does that is because of representation. Why would you need to create an android, a robot who is LGBT? I don't even need to see a straight relationship in that movie as well. And that's where I'm going. I don't need to see the sex scene that they created. I don't need to see it.
Why do you think that representation is not important? Why do you think that it's something that should not be valid?
Only when it's to the detriment of the story.
And was having a deaf character to the detriment of the story?
What does it add? It doesn't make sense. Why would a robot be deaf?
I mean, apparently there's plenty of people that do find value in it, because that's what you're missing here is, and I did a video on this recently about how stories are perspective. It may not be your perspective because, like me, you're a white dude. Me and you don't have to think about this shit. We don't have to think about being deaf. We don't have to think about, racial inequality. We could go through our entire lives.
Have you ever been overseas and been racially looked at in a racial way? Or discriminated against? Exactly.
I didn't have to go overseas. I've been looked at in a racial way in the United States because of.
So where's the power dynamic there? You've been racially. You've been looked at in a racial. What are you talking about?
The power dynamic is that it didn't affect me. Like, I mean, if someone's an asshole to me because I'm white, it's because they don't trust white people because of the historical marginalization that white people have done to black people in the United States. Maybe because you're not from here, you're not familiar with the specifics of it in this country. But if some, black dude is like, hey, get out of here, whitey, or whatever, be like, okay, man, whatever. But I know it's not because I am white. It's because, it's because of the historical marginalization. They've had bad experiences with white people. They've had white people that have started shit with them simply for being black. And no, that doesn't mean it's okay that that guy did that to me. But it's not the same thing. It's not just reverse racism, right? Because I'm racism. Yeah, in that specific example, it's racism, but that's not the same thing. Like systemic racism is an entire other thing. And there is no reverse systemic racism. There is only racism against non-white people in the systemic sense. Okay. And so, we can get into the nitty gritty of this. It's all consequences of the history that we've had in this country and other countries that have racial, issues. It's all consequences because, of course, certain communities are going to have some resentment towards people that look like the people that have historically kept them down. Of course they are. I have resentment towards, like I'm on the spectrum. You know what I mean? So like I have resentment towards people who they're like, autistic people are fucking retards, or, shit like that. I have resentment for it, right? Because I'm a human being. That shit hurts.
Yeah, I mean, but if you could just like pass it off and say whatever, they're just a fucking bunch of fuckwits. I can live my own life. I don't need to worry about what they say. Like, how is that gonna? Why are you letting that affect you?
What are you talking about?
Like when people say shit like that, why are you letting that affect you? Like I've been called a white supreme pizzarist. I just don't want to say it on your stream.
It doesn't affect me.
I'm not that. How am I that? I just pass it off. It's like these idiots don't know what they're talking about because I'm not that.
It doesn't affect me in the way that I'm like going to cry about it or anything. It's just, because I'm in control of my emotional responses. I'm not going to let somebody like that because they're ignorant, and kind of, an asshole. I'm not going to let that ruin my day. But yeah, I definitely going to be a little resentment towards it for sure. It's I mean, all right. So back to the perspective thing, man, because that's what stories are. They're perspectives. And when you say that Disney is only doing this for representation, it's a really, really thin argument that kind of misses the point, because representation isn't just something that they do to make money. Yeah, that's part of it for sure, because we live in a capitalist society. So anything that a company does is going to be to make money. Are you against capitalism?
Middle Eastern countries. Do you see what they've been doing there? Oh, we're gonna censor the Eternals for you because we want to make some money.
That's religious stuff, man. That's religious zealotry. They, it's not good. I don't.
Yeah, but they gave it. They did it to China.
Yeah,
like,
China.
Let's censor for China. One of the biggest markets.
China is an authoritarian. China is an authoritarian thing. I don't agree with China. I'm not like a Chinese communist defender or anything like that. So yeah,
where would you put yourself on the political spectrum? Just if you don't want to, you don't have to. But I'm just curious because these days, who the hell knows? Because anything, I've been called whatever.
My main priority is harm reduction, and I'd like to see a world where people's perspectives aren't denied simply because they aren't the perspective of someone else. And that's essentially why I am, got pissed at your thing and was making fun of you, because just because you don't see the value in having a deaf character and you've thought about it so hard, like I said earlier, you walked yourself back into that position of, well, it doesn't add anything to the story. And it's like, it doesn't have to. There's, it's just a character that represents a perspective that is not your perspective, but that doesn't mean that perspective is not valid. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean the world to some other people that are deaf.
But if it doesn't add to the story, that's just like placing a token there. It's like, hey, here's a deaf person. You can be happy about it. What? If it was an actual person, living being, not an android robot, whatever, I'd be like, okay, I understand. You're making an actual person with a story, not just someone who can be refreshed every time. I don't want to go into spoilers.
Okay, I mean, I've read the Eternals comics, which seems like maybe you haven't, but like, I understand how the.
I have like, I'm like you. I have issues reading comics because the way they're structured, like that, the way I've said it before, but I also have some learning difficult issues. So that's how I'm not fucking perfect straight white male, fucking nothing wrong. Okay. We've all got fucking issues. So the way comics are structured, it's very difficult for me to read. I do have some, and it's fucking hard, but I try and get through them.
Right on. I mean, that's fair, man. Like, you know, so how would you feel if there was an Eternal who had, you know, similar reading difficulties as you? Would you think that takes something away from the story, or would you maybe watch that and go, oh shit, I can relate to that? Because that's what characters are for, man, is for us to watch them and find ways to relate to them. Okay. And that's all it is.
But if they put them there just because they're there and said, look, we've got someone who has difficulties learning, and then they just put them in for 2 seconds, 2 scenes, and that's it. I'm like, well, what the fuck was that?
Why? So where's this arbitrary metric? You see, this is arbitrary. Like it's like you have some book that you're not sharing with me that has all these rules written down. Like, if someone's a comic writer, they can't say that a movie's good if they haven't read the comics. But if they're not a comic writer, but if they're not a comic writer, then it's okay for them to make a movie that doesn't reflect the comics in any way. It's like, where are these rules coming from, man? Like, I understand you have preferences and stuff, but at the end of the day, if you can accept that having Makari be a deaf character means something to people that aren't you, just get off it. Like, I mean, maybe you don't see the value in it, but it allowed other people to connect even more with that character and the story. And you know, and honestly, it could just be a lack of imagination on your part if you don't understand why an android type character might have some kind of, you know, disability or something. Like, who's to say that the creation of these things were perfect?
Well, they didn't say anything about it in the movie. That's exactly what and also someone you brought up earlier, Fabian, I don't know how to say his last name. He said something, which is in my article too, but then he makes a claim about it and then says he hasn't even seen the movie. So good on you there. Like, why are you talking to me? You haven't even seen the movie, and you want to make a claim about the movie.
I mean, I don't know what he said. I can't speak to that specifically.
In the article, you had it. Let me bring it up.
I mean, you know, and I'm not going to sit here and defend Fabian Nicieza and everything he said or anything. It's like, I'm not here to fight anybody else's battles. I'm just the general thing that I took issue with, because I'd never heard about you. I'd never heard of you until I saw that, you know, Gail had retweeted you, and, you know,
see, if she didn't touch it, none of this would have happened. She could have just been like, I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to let him.
What do you think social media is, man? Do you think that you just get to say whatever you want to directly to people and they don't have a right to respond to you?
She does. And that's what she did. But I'm saying if she didn't, it wouldn't have blown up. That's all I'm saying.
Well, no. So she said what she said, and that article wrote itself. You didn't have any agency in the process, is what you're saying. Because people say shitty stuff to me all the time, and I barely ever respond to any of it. I could blow it up and make a bunch of content out of it, and, you know, stress myself out and talk shit on people more than I even do. You know what I mean? Like, but I have agency in the process. I can go, well, this isn't worth my time. At some point, you made the decision, whether it's conscious or not. You decided that this is worth my time to blow up into a big deal and play the victim, which is what your article is framed as being some kind of victim. When, you know, you have to understand the consequences, the potential consequences of responding to a public figure that might draw attention from that public figure's followers. And to try and act like you didn't see that coming, or you know, it's unfair, or you're somehow, you know, a victim.
I do it a lot of times on Twitter. I retweet a lot. I tweet way too much. I mean, I admit that I tweet way too much. I was just doing it because that's why. Well, I saw something that I thought was, I should say, because yeah, she's a comic writer, and then eventually, not many people over 100 and whatever thousand followers who are comic writers who have other things to do, usually interact with that. But obviously, she has. Well,
there's a reason there's a reason she has a lot of followers and that people are very engaged. It's because she you know, has a lot of positive interactions with fans and stuff like that. I mean, I interact with her all the time. I think she's great. Cool. I mean, it's just it's kind of, I think, silly and dishonest to portray it as if she precipitated the whole thing and the article, and you know, it's just take some accountability for your role in it, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, dude. You know,
you don't want to hear what Nietzsche said? Okay. Well,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. What do you say?
The idea that a race of super beings being seeded across the planet should reflect the cultures they are actually being seeded doesn't make sense to you. And I said, oh, that would make sense if that's what the movie did. And then he comes out and says he hasn't seen the movie. So why make that point?
So the movie doesn't do that?
It doesn't say we're creating them to make them look like they would on this planet.
Oh, so you need it spelled out for you.
No,
you can't just take context and put it together in your mind and go, that makes sense, because movies do that all the time.
No, because they make the same things every time. Like these things are recreated every time for different planets. So why the fuck would this is not right that a race of super beings would reflect those cultures, because they're different planets and they're the same thing. Okay, you don't get it.
No, I think that's bullshit, man, because if the Celestials created the Eternals specifically for Earth, and so they're going to create beings that represent the beings on Earth, man. Like, and if they seeded the Skrull homeworld, I'm sure that they seeded Skrull Eternals. You know, if they seeded the Kree homeworld, then I'm sure they seeded blue and pink Kree Eternals. Like, it makes perfect sense, man. Yeah, it's just that you're like almost.
It's not what happened in the movie.
What do you mean that's not what happened in the movie?
The ones that they were making were the same ones every time.
What's wrong with that?
They're not Kree. They look the same as they do every time.
So did it show Eternals on the Kree homeworld?
And they showed the whole thing. I'm not going to give you a spoiler. They showed a whole line of them being made. The same things. All right, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, man. I think it would be. I honestly think that you could do some self-reflection on some of these points and try to ask yourself where you're coming up with these arbitrary standards that you're throwing out, and so on. So that's just my take, but I really do appreciate you coming on and speaking your mind and stuff. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, you too.
My cat is going nuts, dude. Gordy, calm down. Maybe put you on stream and talk shit to you. All right. I wasn't expecting that, but I'm glad that he showed up. How do you guys think I did? That was pretty much my first debate. I didn't really see it as a debate. I don't think that that guy really had his positions too well thought out, and I don't think that they're worth much. There's not much weight to the things he had to say. I think that, just like with a lot of these guys, if you just pull one pin underneath their arguments, it all comes tumbling down. It's all just feelings-based shit. Just feelings, and we're all entitled to our opinions, people. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that I try to get across in my content, is that we all have preferences and we all have opinions. It's just when it starts to become like, I'm creating this standard that you must obey because it's based on my feelings and my preferences and my opinions. That's when it becomes toxic. That's when it becomes gatekeeping. That's when it's hostile. And then especially whenever you throw in the context of because this deaf person exists in a movie and they don't explain why they're deaf or whatever, it's really silly.